You're listening to Tech Talks, the TV industry podcast from Broadcast Tech Magazine. My name's Jake Bickerton and I'm the editor of Broadcast Sport and Broadcast Tech magazines. This Broadcast Tech Talks podcast is with Ross Video CEO David Ross. We're here to talk about how Ross has responded to all the challenges of 2020, how the company has worked to enable remote productions of sports, esports and events, and helped its customers transition to the cloud during the pandemic. We'll also look at what's in store for 2021 as well. Ross Video, of course, has a plethora of products and services it offers. Lots of live production, things such as all-in-one production systems, cameras, graphic systems, including Piero, which it acquired a few years ago, switches, replay systems. I mean, the list literally goes on and on. There's lots of infrastructure products working behind the scenes as well to enable lots of clever stuff and connectivity, cloud solutions. And its customer base spans everything really: sports, news, corporate, esports, education, government. There's pretty much everything that is to do with the world of events and broadcast. These guys are at the heart of it. Obviously, 2020 has been a year no one could have predicted, with COVID-19 having a serious impact on all aspects of the production and broadcast industry across all genres. So, David, I suppose really what we should kick off with, what has Ross been doing in this time to sort of try and address the challenges of the pandemic, and how has business been for you guys as well?
The pandemic impacted just about every area of life and business.
Yeah.
So certainly we have a factory. One of the things we did there is we had to completely reconfigure the factory, come up with 2 shifts that each worked 3 days a week, 12 hours a day, trying to separate them in case one shift got sick. You don't want to infect the second shift, things like that. We actually decided to take care of our people as well. And we instituted a $20 an hour minimum wage in Ross Video, recognizing that some of these people who are not able to work from the office, we wanted to really thank them for what they were doing. I think as well, we did a lot of things in the Ross mobile production side of things. Ross Video has a production arm. So we have got, 8 OB vans, we've got a studio, and we do about 500 events a year, a lot of sports and esports and things like that.
Did that grow out of the sort of product side as, you're being asked to get involved in doing the production yourself, or did you have that sort of always alongside the products?
We did that as an acquisition maybe 6 or 7 years ago.
Right.
And we built it up from one truck to, the fairly large organization it is today. We just kind of realized that we had everything end to end. All we had to do is put into a truck and it was an all Ross production. So we thought, it was a great way to also show what you can do when you put it all together, as opposed to a few pieces of Ross. We would use robots on sets and things like that because, one less person in the room, one less masked person in the room, things like that. And we use that in tennis. We use that in all sorts of different interviews and different productions. So having robotics, I think, was very, very handy in the pandemic.
What exactly are the robots then?
Well, the most famous one is our Furio robot. If you look at the BBC World News and you see their circular sets and the robots all around the hosts, those are Ross robots. So those Furios can go on rails, and they and you can set them up at the edge of a swimming pool. You can set them up at the side of a tennis court or in the middle of a concert. Heading into the pandemic, a lot of people were talking about REMI. We were able to go beyond REMI and into a fully decentralized production environment. So, the vision mixer operator could bring their vision mixer panel home, put up a couple of monitors, regular, computer monitors, and and see their multi-viewers, see everything, and literally switch the show from their house. The graphics operator would be in their house. The audio operator would be in their house. And the producer, the director, and the talent would potentially all be completely decentralized as well.
Is this something that you're offering via your own production services, or is this something that you've been working with clients to enable them to do?
Actually, it was really interesting what happened from a Ross Video point of view, because we have, 300 people heading towards 400 people into our research and development department. And the technology to do this came out of our Ross Mobile group. we decided not to lay anybody off when they lost everything back around April, and all in one day, I think. So some of them went home and they started hacking away and learning how to do different things, and they came up with an entire system for decentralized production that was just brilliant. It was used for Access Hollywood, I believe. I think it was used for esports, and then it was used for tennis, and then it was used for the entire season of WNBA basketball.
And do they work a little bit like a consultancy? Once they've created something that works for them, can they then work with others that want to do a similar thing? And then you can, because I suppose that's a way of selling more Ross products into a customer base as well, potentially, isn't it?
Absolutely. Anybody who really needed that sort of remote production, they were there for them. And to be honest, we are working at productizing that technology as well, so that people, our customers, can install it and use it on their own. So that's a little bit of a hint of what's to come. A lot of people are talking about using the cloud in this year, and the cloud is necessary to connect us together, but not always the best thing right now for doing high-end production. A lot of the cloud solutions are very, very basic. And suppose you want to have, and we saw this with a lot of our customers, there's a reason why some of the higher end production technology is as sophisticated as it is and has so many different features. Is we come up with, there's a lot of problems in high end productions that need to be solved, that a lot of the all-in-one, simple things that are in the cloud just totally don't address, and they don't address large numbers of feeds as well. So the decentralized solution is a hybrid type solution, in that you're using the cloud for moving around your video and audio, but all of the production is being used, is happening inside of regular racks of equipment. Even though you may have your vision mixer operator, thousands of kilometers away from the equipment racks, they are still using high-end equipment to make it all happen. So in the end, you're not sacrificing any sort of quality or production sophistication.
Fantastic. And I mean, there has been a lot of talk over the last few years about, cloud and kind of virtualization of products, and, whether hardware is going to be a thing in the future that we need. But I suppose you're saying that certainly at the moment, the complexity of some of these challenges require a kind of hardware solution. Do you think things can potentially change in the future?
Oh, I think they absolutely will. I think, in something like 5 years, you're going to see a little bit of everything. We're already seeing, the needs of the marketplace fragmenting. I remember, 10, 15 years ago, people would just ask if you're working with 525 or 625 lines, and that was it. And you'd use a digital SDI connection, and we're done. Now it's what compression format are you using? NDI? Are you using 2110? Are you using legacy 2022-6 digital video? Are you using coax cables? Are you using 12 gig or SDI? Are you using 25 gig IP or just the slow 10 gig? It just, and none of the things I just said has anything to do with cloud. Now, if you want to go to cloud, you're going to all sorts of other types of, cloud web protocols for low latency, highly compressed video and things like that. So I think over the next 5 years, we're just going to see more of that. And there's an interesting thing that a lot of people aren't talking about, in that, we want to go to cloud. Processing in the cloud can be either expensive or challenging, especially if you want to mix like 30 or 50 or 100 different video signals together for complicated productions. You really can't get decent UHD in and out of the cloud. And all these web protocols stop at 1080p 60. That's it. So it's very interesting, because before 2020, one of the big buzzwords was 4K. We all want to do UHD. We want to be able to recognize that our viewers, often have big 4K or even 8K TVs, and we're sending them like 1080i or 720p or some horrible video standard. Let's catch up to what people are actually using to watch our content. And when we go to cloud, we go back to square one. We're going back at least 10 years in video quality, let alone the fact we're compressing it usually quite tremendously. So after the pandemic, it's a really interesting question, is what's going to be more important, The move to the cloud, which is to the convenience of the producers, or the content creators, or is it going to be going back to needing higher resolution video like 4K, which is to satisfying the needs of the content consumers? So, and I think the answer to that is, some are going to go and do what's convenient for them for their business purposes, and others are going to be satisfying market demand, which is higher resolutions. There's a lot of pirating going on of content as well. In the case of production in the cloud, these are feeds that are going up, raw feeds, independent cameras, unbranded feeds, unattributable feeds and things like that. So when you're working with high-end content, there is probably a real concern as to whether or not, a Premier League game should be produced in the cloud.
Do you feel the security, or at least the perception of security in the cloud, isn't at the stage it needs to be to enable the likes of those kind of real top-end formats such as Premier League to sort of fully trust in it?
I think that would be a true concern. I think, in fact, security is definitely something that in the internet is certainly something that's getting more and more traction everywhere. I think in 2020, it probably took a big step back at the same time as well. And it creates awareness, but I think a lot of these big broadcasters turned a blind eye to some of the concerns on security just because they wanted to get anything on the air. It's the lesser of two evils. But as we move forward and they have more choice, I think security is going to be a bigger deal.
And for you, Ross, I mentioned all the sort of different marketing verticals that your kind of main customer base is in. Where do you see the growth at the moment? I mean, esports is clearly something that, during the pandemic, it had a natural position to benefit from the lack of live sports and kind of create a bigger fan base, or at least an awareness of it. Is that an area that you see kind of continuing to grow over the next few years?
Esports is going through a similar arc, I think, of a lot of other things like stadiums went through a few years ago. Stadiums used to have maybe a 4-input switcher, for the in-house feed and very, very low-end productions. And now they often have higher production quality than the trucks that are pulling up doing the broadcast. They have big screens, they have more pixels, they have more screens and so forth. And they tell a bigger story to the fans. I think esports started as well as, hey, we're just watching some guy, or a team of people playing a video game. That's just a single feed. And now they are extravaganzas with virtual and augmented production, quality. And you have to have 4K. You have to do all sorts of different things. And it's like a high end. So it's a growth area, not only for the number of viewers, but also from, say, a supplier point of view and to the production point of view. The amount of equipment to produce them is going up and up. Content creation tools are becoming more and more affordable and more available. We're just seeing more content being created, and that just matches the view I have of the world of everything becoming fragmented. There's very few Super Bowls left out there, and many more competitors for eyeballs. And every time you want to do that, you're often, if you're doing it live, you've got to do a high-end production. Yes. People do have expectations.
Yeah. Do you think the automation of sports, which is happening in the production side, where you've got, say, a 180-degree camera in the middle of a pitch covering lower tier sport that might not be produced otherwise? Do you see that? I know you mentioned about the high quality, but it seems with a lot of machine learning that automation can get to the point where it's actually doing a reasonably good job, and you can add all the graphics in and all that kind of stuff. Do you see that automation continuing, and potentially even into higher tier sports as well?
Well, it's interesting. I think absolutely. Because there is price pressures and things like that to be able to produce content. There is fear though when you take the human being out of the equation, and because nobody really knows how the AI is doing what it's doing. And it may look like it's doing what you want, but in the end, you've just trained it for inputs and outputs, and it's magic in between. Yes. And I have a favorite video that you can find on YouTube for this, where the AI decided that it fell in love with the bald head of a referee.
Yeah, that's a very good point. I mean, machine learning, obviously has potential quite quickly to eliminate that type of, what do they call it? False I can't remember what the term is. False positive, maybe something like that. Yeah. From your point of view, I'm interested actually with Ross, because as I said at the start, you've got so many different products and so many different areas that you cover. And then you add stuff either through you're creating new products or you're acquiring them. So say Piera, for example, with the graphic side. How do you sort of decide what you need to sort of slot into the Ross video offer, if you like? I mean, what's your kind of decision-making process like for that?
It comes from everywhere, just like you would expect. I mean, one obvious one is if you think you're doing well and a competitor comes up with something brilliant, and then you scramble and say, well, how would we do that but better?
Yeah.
Other times you have a customer with a problem that needs to be solved. And so you get your heads together and you come up with a new solution or modify what you have for that sport or event or whatever else. Other times we take a look at the portfolio and we look at the needs of a market vertical and say, well, the needs of, say, education or, say, a religious broadcast are different than a stadium, which is different than a newscast. Now, and how they often need most of the same pieces of equipment, but then some of them are used in different ways. And so you sit there and you say, okay, we can come up with an end-to-end solution with just tweaking some of the things we have or adding one new piece that we didn't have before. So then you're looking at, from a very customer centric point of view, but from an end-to-end solution.
Yeah.
So, and sometimes some of our product managers could just come up with a cool idea, out of the blue, and we all get excited about it.
Brilliant. Okay, before we finish, I'd like to bring things really close by and into 2021. How do you see that sort of panning out? Hopefully very different to 2020, but yeah, what's your sort of thoughts if you could project forward a little bit?
I don't think I've ever said it this way, but I think that in some ways I'm hoping that 2021 will be 2020 in reverse. So, it started with, full scale production and then to a lockdown almost, and then slowly worked its way out. I think this year we may go through one or two more lockdowns with second and third waves happening and things like that. And we want to take care of people. But I think we'll bump our way out of that, especially with vaccines coming and better ways of coping with the pandemic. And hopefully by the end of 2021, it'll look like the very start of 2020.
Oh, that'd be so nice, David. If you're right, the world will feel like a much nicer place again, I think.
I will love being on airplanes and traveling like a starving man, I think. And
feels such a long time ago.
Friends and events and concerts. I think we're going to be a generation that totally appreciates these things.
That's right. Yeah, maybe that's sort of a positive way of looking at things. Yeah, it'll make us realize what we took for granted before and really, appreciate it properly. You're probably right. Well, let's hope so anyway. Nice one, Dave. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Oh, thank you. I really enjoyed it as well.
I hope you enjoyed this episode of the Broadcast Tech Talks podcast. Please subscribe, rate and review, and I'll see you next time.